Hi, my name is Satomie Shinde. I'm at University of Wisconsin River Falls. I'm a professor of special education at teacher education department. We're going to be presenting improving the self-determination of students with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Wisconsin. And this project has been made possible in collaboration with the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota, Renata Ticha and Brian Abery. And Renata is here with me today.
Yes, my name is Renata, and as Satomie said, I represent the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. It's a University Center for Excellence in Disabilities.
First, I wanted to send special thanks to these 6 school districts that we built partnership with for this project. I appreciate the help from the educators and administrators because the project wouldn't have been happening without their collaboration. So first, we have 3 big pillars as for the goals and purpose of the project. First is to understand the current knowledge, skills, and attitudes of teachers and staff to support the self-determination of students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Second is to provide educators, including teachers, paraprofessionals, and other staff with training and technical assistance on how to support the self-determination of students in inclusive settings. And third is to investigate changes in the knowledge, skills, and beliefs of educators in terms of the self-determination of students with intellectual and developmental disabilities as a result of educational and training opportunities provided through the project. So before we start to talk about why this project is important, I wanted to share the design, the timeline of this project. So this project was initially designed to be implemented during the 2019 and 20 academic year, but it was extended due to the COVID pandemic. So I'm showing the current timeline briefly here. It was launched in September 19, so we recruited 6 school districts to participate in this project and visited each district for initial presentation of the overview of the project and meeting with them. Between October and November 19, we collected the baseline data from the students with intellectual and developmental disabilities from the 6 school districts and participating educators and the families of the students. I will talk a little more about the instruments we use for the data collection later. So after we collected the data, we provided the participating educators with 3 training sessions of self-determination. We divided the participating teachers and staff into 2 groups for each session. The first 2 training sessions took place in UW River Falls campus for face-to-face. And right before we were going to schedule the 3rd one, we had a school closure in March due to COVID, as you know. Then we were able to complete the last component of the self-determination training module virtually early in this academic year. Later, Renata is going to talk about some of the topics we discussed at the training sessions. And we stayed in touch with all the participating teachers by facilitating online discussions, providing discussion prompts to encourage the teachers to share their strategies and observation of their students using Microsoft Teams and Flipgrid videos. We started to collect the post-test data this past November by meeting with each student one-on-one on Zoom call, and I'm planning to complete all next month. We're going to work on data analysis in March, so I will share some preliminary results of data analysis later. Toward the end of the project, we are planning 2 outreach conferences, one for stakeholders to share the findings with them, and the other for public to highlight some of our experience of this project. So now Renata is going to talk about what self-determination is.
Yes, so we based this project on a definition of self-determination my colleague Brian Abery and our team have developed, referring to individuals exercising the degree of control over their lives that they desire in the areas that are important to them. So there are several different definitions of self-determination, but this is the one we used for this project. So what is important about self-determination is that people feel empowered to make changes in their lives that they want, not necessarily changes that somebody else wants them to make. And it's also supporting those people, including people with disabilities, to accomplish those changes with those supports that they need. Self-determination includes having the control over the things that matter to a person in day-to-day activities, but also in long-term settings focused on long-term goals. And here, as I discussed the definition, this is the visual representation of the definition. So you can see self-determination being the intersection of the desired degree of control the person has over the importance of the important things in their lives. And that changes over time. So it's different for a child and as they grow into an adult. And when we talk about and do the training on self-determination, we touch on skills, including choice and decision-making, social skills and others, knowledge of different systems of the rights of students with disabilities, and also attitudes and beliefs, so of teachers, but also of society. Within this project, we embedded what we were doing in the context of Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin, as many other states in the US, collect what is called the National Core Indicators data, which is outcome data for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So we analyzed the data in relation to the data in the region and nationally, and found that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Wisconsin tended to make less support-related and everyday choices than others in the country. And that is despite the fact that there are many people in Wisconsin on self-directed waivers, which would make us think that they would be making more choices than we found. And so it is within this context that we conducted the study. And for more detail about this particular data analysis, we have included a link here.
So as Renata mentioned about the National Core Indicator data from Wisconsin, the idea to improve self-determination is aligned with the priority of this grant, which is increasing independence for people with disabilities in Wisconsin. So why is this project important? Well, research shows that the students with intellectual and developmental disabilities experience lower self-determination than their peers. Research also indicates that the students with intellectual and developmental disabilities often experience less than optimal educational, social, psychological, employment outcome, and quality of life than their peers without disabilities. Some research findings show that the increase in self-determination helps students and young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the areas of personal vision for future, sense of personal control, self-advocacy, pro-social behavior, community participation, academic and employment outcomes. So this project is designed to provide educators with training modules and discussion of self-determination so that skills, knowledge, and attitudes of them enhanced. And as a result, we use effective strategies to facilitate self-determination of students with intellectual and developmental disabilities in inclusive settings. Now, students, so as for the method, we included the students from the 6 school districts in Wisconsin. So we had over 90 students, and of course we received the consent from families members for those who were under 18. And we had over 30 educators from those districts participating in this project. And all of the schools are currently open with the choice of in-person and online school. So as for the materials, we collected student data for both pre and post test by giving Minnesota self-determination scales. And this assessment includes the multiple components from the skills, attitudes, and knowledge scale, such as goal setting, decision making, self-esteem, locus of control, etc. And it has multiple scenarios of two students, two different students. One is more self-determined than the other. That asks students to respond with type of student they are. So the most of the assessment questions includes binary responses and some qualitative ones, such as what they would do if they don't like rules at school. And for the educator training, as I mentioned, we use the self-determination curriculum, and Renata is going to talk about some of the topics we covered. We also collected pre and post-test data from the participating educators and families using survey. We derived the survey questions from the Minnesota Self-Determination Skills, Knowledge, and Attitudes Inventory, Minnesota Skills, Knowledge, and Attitudes and Teacher and Staff Scales, and Minnesota Self-Determination Scales. The survey questions included full Likert scale, 4-point Likert scales, to ask them such as how well prepared the educators felt in helping students with decision making and goal setting, etc. The family version of the survey also included a 4-point Likert scales to ask them such as how they perceive their children exercise the self-determination. So Renata.
So the trainings that my colleague and I conducted had several components. We tried to tailor the training to the interests and needs of the teachers. So some of the topics included, in addition to the introduction, was focused on communication and how it relates to improved self-determination. How can teachers increase choice-making and decision-making in their students with intellectual and developmental disability? We talked about identity and what does it mean to explore the student's identity to increase their independence and self-determination. And then we kind of pivoted, like everybody else, to address some of the COVID issues. We talked about online learning and self-determination, and also covered how to support self-determination when collaborating with families of students with disabilities.
So here's the preliminary results. Since we are still in the process of data collection for post-test, but we were able to run some repeated measure analysis to investigate the mean differences of student self-determination assessment between pre and post-test from one school district here. Because of small size of N and having more data to collect, we didn't see statistically significant differences, but we recognized some marginal increase in student self-determination in some areas, such as decision and choice making, self-regulation, which are in skills area, and locus of control, self-esteem, acceptance, sense of value by others, which are in attitudes areas. I'm showing the increase in student locus of control here. Locus of control is a type of attitude and belief that they have a control over their outcomes, such as, if they get a good test score in math, students with more locus of control would think that they did well because they study hard or they are good in math, instead of thinking that they were just lucky. And we have more data to collect for the post-test of educator and family survey, but we recognize that some participating teachers and staff perceived they were better prepared in clearly explaining about responsibilities and choice and decision making, and supporting students in choice making at the end. And as for the implications, so as national core indicators data analysis revealed that that there's a need to support the development of self-determination capacities of Wisconsin citizens with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And students with intellectual and developmental disabilities may increase their self-determination in the areas of like decision and choice making, self-regulation, locus of control, self-esteem and acceptance, and sense of value by others with adequate support. And as existing research indicates, we believe that increase in self-determination of students potentially lead to enhanced academic achievement, independence, and employment outcomes. So we understand it's essential to address the self-determination needs of school-age youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities to teach and promote self-determination before and during the transition to adulthood to support their future independence. And as we mentioned, so the outcome is going to be shared with public and stakeholders to spread the importance of self-determination to increase independence in people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Wisconsin. And here's our contact information. Thank you.